Hey everybody, for this week's Grow It, Eat It challenge, I'm going to try some of these beautiful little turnips that I grew and some chard. I have a really nice variety of yellow heirloom chard and a red heirloom chard, so they're very pretty, but we really don't use them very often. We're not quite sure how to cook with them because they're a little more bitter than a lot of the greens. So I found this really cool veggie frittata recipe that I'm going to try out. I'm not going to do everything exactly like the recipe because I don't have eggplant. So I'm going to double up the amount of summer squash instead. And I'm going to use a little less pepper because we aren't huge on pepper. But we're going to start off with the turnips and my one poor measly rutabaga. Poor little fellow. I don't know what was up with them. I guess the bed they were in wasn't loose enough because they look terrible. So we're going to start by chopping the turnips into 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch chunks, and then I'm going to pre-cook them for 5 minutes. Now it is time to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. You want to place your rack on the second from the bottom level because you don't want to have it too close to the top and scorch on the top of the dish. Once you've done that, it's time to prepare your peppers and your squash. So I'm just using some frozen peppers because we do not want them to go bad. So I'm going to dice them into 1/2 inch sections. Freezing peppers is a really great way to use them up without them going to waste if you have a really good harvest. So these are left from last year. So you want to dice them up and set them aside, and then you want to dice up your squash and set them aside. Now you can also use eggplant, but I do not have eggplant. We had eggplant parmesan yesterday and it was delicious. Now that everything is diced up, it is time to set them aside. I used yellow and green squash. It just calls for summer squash. And we have zucchini coming out our ears. The yellow squash aren't far behind, so we try to use squash pretty much every day, as well as green beans, because we are in major harvesting mode here. It's about time to start dehydrating the squash for winter soups. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is peel and dice an onion and set that aside as well. I mixed up my onion labels. I think this is probably a Walla Walla sweet onion. They're really good. I was hoping, honestly, for a little more size on all my onions. This is one of my bigger ones. They didn't really bob up huge this year. But it was a first time garden bed, so hopefully next year we'll do a little better. So now that my onions are chopped, it's time to get to work on the chard. I have washed it very thoroughly. I'm cutting off any stalk pieces that look a little iffy. I will say you have to look very carefully at both sides. I harvested some the other day and one of the pieces had a little spider cocooned on the back. It's so pretty though, it's just so brightly colored. I have a couple different varieties. That one's a little wilted because I picked him yesterday. Alright. So we're just going to, once they're clean and any damaged pieces have been discarded, I'm going to cut the stalks into 1/2 inch pieces and then the leaves into 1/2 inch to 1 inch pieces. So they cut the stalks, I guess, kind of fine because they can be tough otherwise. But they're so full of vitamins, you don't want to throw them out if you can help it. So basically this dish is definitely not something you want to do if you're in a hurry. It's not very involved really. It says like 25 minutes of prep time, but I feel like between harvesting the vegetables and getting everything together, I took a lot longer than that. I would imagine if you don't have chard, you could use beet greens as a substitute, or spinach. Probably really any nice leafy vegetable. Beet tops. And again, when you're done cutting your chard, you're going to set this aside. This is a great way to use a lot of it at once. Now it's time for the fun part. Hopefully no one asks me for a dozen eggs that usually doesn't get eggs from me, because we're going to use 8 eggs in this dish. So we're going to crack the eggs into the bowl. I do save my shells for composting. I don't want to give the girls any more encouragement because somebody thinks she should eat the eggs. So I do not crunch up the eggshells and give it to them. I give them oyster shell instead. So these go right in the compost. Oh, I got an itty bitty bit of shell in there. So now that they're all cracked, I'm going to scramble the eggs just enough so that the yolk and the whites mix. And as soon as they're lightly mixed, I am going to add 1 cup of milk. I am using cow's milk because that's what I have available, but they do recommend goat milk. So I'm going to lightly mix just a little bit more to get the milk added, and then we're going to set the egg mixture aside. It is time to start cooking. So I'm going to add some olive oil to a pan on the stove. Now because I'm using a very small, it's kind of a toaster convection oven, because I don't want to heat up the kitchen, I am not cooking in an iron skillet, but they do suggest cooking in an iron skillet so that you can just put the whole thing right in the oven to finish after you're done sauteing. So I'm going to let the oil heat up, and then I'm going to add my onion. If you had eggplant in your dish, they also recommend that this is the time to add the eggplant and let it saute along with the onion. Alright, so the oil is heated up. I'm going to add the onion. I'm going to caramelize them for about 10 minutes, and then we'll be able to add the rest of the veggies. Now since I am not using the same pan that I'm going to use in the oven, I'm going to do my last step a little bit differently. They would just pour the egg mixture over top when they're done. I'm going to transfer this into 2 separate pans actually, and then divide the egg mixture over top. So I'll leave this to caramelize and stir it a little bit every once in a while, and then as soon as it's done, I'm going to add everything else, veggie wise. So the onions have caramelized, and it's time to add the peppers, the chard, and the summer squash. The dog just got themselves a delicious piece of summer squash. Trying everything to kind of get it coated with the olive oil and onion. The chard will wilt down really fast, so it'll be a lot less in a minute. Almost forgot the turnips and rutabaga. Making sure I don't add all that extra water that I drained out. Now we're going to add a little salt and pepper. I tend to go light on salt because we get so much sodium in our diets already. So this is going to cook for about 5 minutes. There's so much steam, it's a little hard to see with all this steam, but I wanted to show you how colorful that looks. All those veggies in one dish. So now that the vegetables have been cooking for several minutes, it is time to put them in a dish and pour the egg and milk mixture over them. And like I said, if you would be doing this in a cast iron skillet, you would not have to do this step. You could just simply start pouring your eggs. But I chose to use the small oven so I didn't heat up the whole house. So wow, that looks amazing. And I have to get a second dish because the oven's so small it can't use a big dish. If you don't have a toaster oven and you cook in a full-size oven all summer, you might want to look into it. It's really nice to not heat up the whole entire kitchen for a quick meal. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to divide the egg mixture over the 2 dishes. Oh wow, I can't wait to try this. We attempted to eat turnips last fall. They were really terrible, but I actually pre-tasted these turnips and they are delicious. So I'm really excited about this. All right, it's time to put these in the 350-degree preheated oven, and they're going to sit in there and bake for about 20 to 25 minutes. And like I said, if you have the cast iron skillet, you can just pop that in instead for 20 to 25 minutes. Wow, I sure hope this tastes as good as it looks. It looks amazing. I can't wait to try it. So here we are. Is it going to taste as good as it looks? Absolutely, I really love it. There's like a hint of bitterness because of the chard. But it's okay, it's not too overpowering. I would think the eggplant might actually tip the bitterness too far over because the chard's bitter, the turnip has a touch of bitterness. Turnips and chard. Check 2 more things off my list here. You know, I kind of feel like it could have used some mushrooms. I think if I did this again, I would definitely add some mushrooms. But otherwise, it's really good and I really like eating it.